These things added additional cost to our foundation for this building, but we found it to be super important because it's something that if you don't do now, you are never going to have the chance to do it. There are different types and formats of bill of quantities. There is the standard bill of quantities, which is very detailed. It's done by a quantity surveyor and the transparency is really high. The other types are simplified contractor quotes, which can be very brief and suitable for small scale contractors. Sometimes the transparency is a little bit low and it is less contractually binding because it's not based on exact numbers. There are also the trade based or material based ones. There are the activity based ones. Today I will be showing a standard bill of quantity. In the next video I will show the trade based type of bill of quantity for this beautiful building, which is an ongoing project, and I'll be showcasing that on this channel as well, so stay tuned. The standard bill of quantity starts with giving your engineer or your quantity surveyor the structural drawing. The structural drawing would contain a foundation layout which tells the quantity surveyor the base of your building, what needs to be filled, where the columns are, the sizes and everything. Here is how a standard bill of quantity would look like. It has sections and line items for each task or activity which will be performed. There are columns that tells you the description, the quantity, how much work will be done, the unit, and then the rate is also given. This allows for a standard way to compare one contractor to another. It is contractually binding. Okay, so briefly explaining the sections. Initially it might look a little confusing, but it's not at all if you look closely. The A part says excavate trenches, right? And these are the long digging of narrow holes in the ground where the building walls and the foundation will sit. And so the rate is given there, and how much filling or how much digging will be done is the 41 cubic meters. So you know that, and then you know how the total amount is. And then there would also be excavation of pits, which is digging deeper and wider holes for where the columns would fit. Subsequent to that, there will be backfilling around the foundations, so soil will be pushed back to the open spaces around them. There would be also extra soil from digging, which will be spread evenly on site instead of being wasted, especially if your soil is good. After that, there will be imported hardcore filling, that is laterite, would be brought to site, will be spread and compacted to create a solid base under the house floor. And after all this, what follows immediately is the concrete mix being poured on site. Alright, so there's something called blinding in the column bases, and it just simply means you'd have a thin concrete layer at the bottom of the foundation holes, and they give a clean and strong surface before the main foundation is actually built. So it's covering 1 cubic meter and the cost is low compared to the other portions of it. The foundation trenches also have to be filled, right? Thick concrete is put into the long trenches that hold the walls of the house firmly, and that comes at a rate of 1,040, the same as the blinding, but then it is 8 cubic meter. Now the floor bed itself, as in the foundation floor bed, and this is probably the costly part of it, is that thick slab of concrete that forms the actual ground floor, the floor that you walk on, and that is about 24 cubic meters, and the total cost was 24,960. The column bases also require some concrete filling, and the columns themselves need to be filled, so those come at a rate of 1,260, slightly higher because of the proportions and other factors. You will see here in this bill of quantity that the ground beam is zeroed out. So the contractor gave us the option whether to include it or not, and we wanted it. And the reason we want it is because it's something that you cannot come back later to add, right? And it's necessary for having a solid foundation, even though Ghana is not like earthquake prone, and the particular area or location doesn't have the ground really moving or splitting in any interesting way. It's something that we wanted for the quality of our building, and it's one of the things that added to the cost of the foundation. After the concrete filling and everything, there is a formwork, which is just mostly wooden molds for the concrete. So there is a formwork for the edges of the foundation. There is also the formwork for the column sides, right? So wooden panels. Sometimes it's metal. If you can have metal, and as you are doing multiple projects, it makes sense. Now these are used around the columns while pouring concrete and compacted so that they form the columns which support your structure. There is also the formwork for the ground beams. So if you are doing ground beams, that has to be coated. And like I told you, even though it's zeroed out here, we eventually ended up doing it. When that is done, there is the reinforcement, which is steel bars that are put in to strengthen the concrete. Actually, it's done before the concrete filling, right? But it's a separate quotation, and these are mostly the iron rods. Now for a structure like this, there is something that is quoted in the structural drawing, and in the structural drawing it says use 16 millimeters bars, right? So you have to use that. You have to make sure you are getting the right quality ones. So the different reinforcement steel bars have different prices, and it's based on the metric tons or their weights. The final part of the quotation is the masonry, which is the blockwork. And we are talking about 150 millimeter solid block walls. The total area that it will be covering is 142 square meter around the foundation and in between. So overall, the total substructure, which includes the foundation, the initial quote was, and this was in 2023, so that landed us at 103,000. Now I'll tell you the two things we added. I've mentioned that we insisted on having the ground beam being added. The second thing that we insisted on, and actually was highly recommended by our builder, was to make sure that the foundation level is a little higher, so that our place is elevated at least above what any potential street level would be or road level would be, so that our place does not become a receptor for water during rain and other things. That added an extra cost of about $2,000. There are other parts of this bill of quantities for the rest of the structures and the rest of the levels, and I've shared a video of the entire cost of the structure, so you can look in the channel and check it out. Also look out for the bill of quantities for this other building which is ongoing, and it's a different type of bill of quantity, so it will be interesting to compare that with this standard type of bill of quantity and then see which one you prefer. You can always ask your contractor to slice and dice your bill of quantity in different ways. That makes it easy for you to consume and understand and see what is being done, so that you can ask the right questions. Thank you, God bless you, and see you in the next video. Bye.